Coming up on show 636, the Audi e-tron S. Karma's Revero gets an EPA rating. And your question of the week answers. Well, good morning, good afternoon or good evening. In fact, wherever you're listening in the world. Welcome to EV News Daily. How are you? You doing all right? This is a show all about electrified transport, no matter what type, and our energy futures. And what I do is I go through every EV story that I can find every day. I whittle it down. There's so much going on. I try and give you an espresso hit of news to save you time, and your part of the show is every Sunday with question of the week. So a couple of quick news items and then on to your answers. Your edition for Sunday, 10th of November. Thank you as always to the gang, the team at MyEV.com. Buying and selling EVs in the USA is so easy with MyEV.com. They'll connect the buyers and the sellers, and they will help you know what you need to know. Things like warranties, very important on certain cars. They'll look after you with those too. Now, a listener from I don't know where Wes is from, but an email from Wes Ellis says, we Yanks have the awesome service that is MyEV.com. But you seem to have all the good toys for charging your EV here in the UK. Specifically, I'm looking for an EVSE that provides features such as the Ohme cable or the Zappi charger. We just had solar installed and would like to use our EVSE to be solar and tariff aware. Do you know of anyone offering such a solution in the USA? Or could you reach out to your adoring audience? They're not that adoring. To see if any of them knows. Yes, Wes, let's put it to the listeners now. If anyone is listening and they know about a similar technology to the Ohme cable, which is tariff aware. So the Ohme cable plugs into your wall box and your charger at home. It knows when the electricity gets cheap overnight and it will charge your car according to set parameters of how far you want to go the next day and the percentage charge and the time of your departure. And the Zappi charger, which is made by a company called MyEnergy, MYENERGI, they make a suite of products. And if you do have solar and an EV, particularly, they help make your home very smart. I've mentioned this on the podcast before. I don't have PV yet, but that is on the cards for, I think, March, April next year, looking at what we're going to be doing over the next couple of months, and some big events are going to be hitting us, and looking at the old savings accounts. Got to just top it up a little bit more. And then, when we're ready, going to get some PV put on the roof, and then I'll be in the market for the same thing. But for now, in the USA, any suggestions, please let me know, and I'll pass them on to Wes. Now, a couple of quick news hits before question of the week. The Audi e-tron S is possibly being seen banging around the Nürburgring. First spied the hot version of the Audi e-tron back in May when the Motor1 spy photographers caught it at the Nürburgring. Haven't seen it since, but according to Motor1.com, we've got some new photos now of a new run. Good chance the e-tron in the video is the hot S version. Intakes on the flank at the front fascia are bigger than the standard e-tron, larger and wider wheels, a new rear diffuser as well. Hint, this could be the sporty version of the Audi e-tron S, which is coming. When Audi originally unveiled the concept car 4 years ago, the e-tron actually was meant to have a 3-motor system, not a 2-motor system. So maybe there is a 3-motor e-tron coming. At least in concept form, the car made almost 500 horsepower, and the production model, like the production model, had a 95 kilowatt-hour battery, although quite famously with the Audi e-tron, you don't get to use all of that 95 kilowatt hours. You don't get a lot of it. They do protect the battery, so you can't use the top end and you can't go all the way down to zero. I mean, your dashboard will say you're at 0%, but even though the car may even stop, because you're at zero, there is what's called a buffer at the bottom of the battery, and that's because lithium-ion batteries don't like to be emptied completely down to zero. So what your dashboard says is zero may well be, I don't know what the number is, maybe 5 or 6% around that of actual capacity left, but that is a protection factor that Audi do. So we'll keep an eye on whether the e-tron S gets any closer. Now, the EPA rating in the USA has been given to the Karma Revero GT. How many miles has it got? Let's find out. The Environmental Protection Agency has rated the all-electric range of the Karma Revero GT as 61 miles. or 98 kilometres. That makes Karma the next best option behind the Polestar 1, which will do almost 100 miles on EV power alone. But we know the Polestar 1 is a bit of a special case. Of course, it's a hybrid car, has a big battery, but a big engine as well. The Karma Revero GT is a range extender. And the performance-oriented Grand Tourer, according to Auto Evolution website, says that compared to the old version, the Revero, the new Revero GT has a bigger battery, so it goes up from 21.4 to 28 kilowatt hours. Acceleration 0 to 60 takes 4.5 seconds rather than 5.4. And the dual-motor rear-wheel drive layout features torque vectoring, better handling, and the total system output. So you've got the battery, you've got the 2 rear electric motors, you've got the gas engine, gives you 535 horsepower. Top speed, only 125 miles an hour. I believe it's the little BMW engine that's used in the i8, which they're now using, rather than the big 2-litre lump that was in the old Karma Revero. Let's give you a few more details on a car we mentioned on Saturday's podcast, the Menlo EV. A car that isn't coming to the US. Chevy are making it for China, and it's had its global premiere in China last night. Let's have a look at this. So, the Chevrolet Blazer, first of all. The Blazer was a 7-seat mid-range SUV. That was shown last night in China, according to Green Car Congress. But the car we want to know about was also shown off, and that is the Menlo, M-E-N-L-O, fully electric vehicle, available in China, 410 kilometres of range. That's 255 miles of range. But it's not, because it's the NEDC test cycle. Now, any of these test cycles are not going to be perfect. So I should just say, if you're a newcomer to the podcast, we talk about range. There's NEDC, which used to be Europe. There is WLTP, which is the new European way. There's EPA range. There's MPGE, which is used in the US. None of these are perfect because it depends how you drive the car. So really, all of them are just a way of comparing apples to apples within that same ecosystem. But the NEDC system is particularly rubbish for giving you an idea of range. So when I say range is 255 miles for the Menlo EV in China made by Chevy, 130, 150 maybe under real-world conditions. I don't know, I've not been told, but the Menlo has adopted a really nice SUV design described as athletic, same as the Chevy FNRX, the sports concept vehicle. A new generation infotainment system, a virtual car key, remote control, intelligent voice recognition. Want to buy one? Are you in China? Because that's the only place they'll sell it. And the final 2 stories today. Why has it taken until now for Honda to commit to plug-in power? It's been a case of biding time, according to Honda Europe's Senior VP, Tom Gardner, according to the website driving.co.uk. Now that the final piece of the jigsaw has fallen into place, Honda has a bold new goal, and that is to ensure every car it sells in Europe by 2022 is in some way electrified. Not fully electric, facilitated by the launch of 6 hybrid or pure electric cars in the next 3 years. Popularity of the CR-V hybrid has had no small part to play in the drive towards battery power. While that target, actually, to have those cars in the next 3 years on the road is being influenced by buyer demand, Honda does admit political pressure has been a motivating force. Tough new emissions regulations in Europe have forced their hand. Honda's European president, Katsushi Inui, did nothing to change the perception of hydrogen, though. I quote, "Our focus is on hybrid and electric vehicles now. Maybe hydrogen fuel cell cars will come, but that's a technology for the next era." End quote. And Ian Howells is Honda's European Senior VP, who said this, and I quote, "We're in the situation where the infrastructure isn't there either to support hydrogen fuel cell cars. There is an infrastructure being developed very rapidly for battery electric cars, but there's nothing really to talk about hydrogen, so there's a way to go yet." End quote. Of course, those in the know will know that not only the Japanese government, who are ideologically wedded to the idea of hydrogen for transport, so much so they're pressuring their national car makers to do so, but Honda, for a long, long time, Honda has been all about hydrogen, and they've really been bigging up hydrogen. And now they're not. Now they're making, I won't call it a U-turn, but certainly a very different clarification to what we've heard before, which is their future is hydrogen. Now their future is EV. And hydrogen, they're keeping an open mind, but certainly not talking it up. Unlike a company like Toyota, which is still very, very bullish on hydrogen being not far away. All right, let's talk about the Australian grid very quickly. I want to say congratulations to any of my Aussie listeners. I don't have the most amount of Australian listeners, but I can see from my stats there's a fair few of you down under. Renewables provided over half of the electricity available on Australia's national grid. For the first week of November, the NEM, the National Energy Market, supplies Lecky to Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, South Australia and Tasmania, says Steve Hanley for Clean Technica. During the 10-minute period, solar power was leading the way, providing 32.5% of electricity. Wind was 15.7%, hydro was 1.9%. There are more than 2 million. This is impressive. There are more than 2 million small rooftop solar systems across those 5 Aussie states, and they provided 72% of the solar power, while solar power plants contributed the other 28%. Fabulous. Well done to anyone in Australia who has a bit of solar PV on their roof, and so you blinking well should do. You stole all the sunshine. It's pretty hot right there. And I am aware of the wider news story as well, of the bushfires that are ongoing. So no offence intended if anybody took any there with me saying it is indeed very hot in Australia. Little too hot for the rally. The final stage of the WRC Championship has now been cancelled because of those bushfires. Okay, let's talk about question of the week this week. I was asking you about carrots and sticks. Carrots, in other words, incentives to buy EVs, sticks to hit you with because you want to penalise polluters. And I didn't let anybody pick both. Some of you came close. But I said, look, I'm being strict. You can only have one. What would it be? Rajiv Narayan says, I would prefer both incentives for EVs, but penalties for polluters if I had to pick one. I guess I'd pick penalties for carbon emissions. I'm assuming that would cost governments less than direct cash incentives and be able to be applied more broadly. Good shout. Hello to Stephen James. I'm a carrot person. I have solar panels and I want to buy an EV. I was looking at the MG ZS EV, but I couldn't afford the extra over the fossil version. I love the petrol version of the car, but I feel gutted. The EV is out of my price range. If the government had better incentive programs to bring the price down, I would have purchased the full EV model. Good shout. Thank you very much, Stephen. Of course, some people say that when incentives go up, the car makers leave the prices high and pocket the difference themselves rather than bringing them down to price parity with fossil gobblers. Bill Pollock says, a stick that doesn't look like a stick. He got very close to fudging the answer here. Price parity is his one. Listeners don't need a moral incentive to choose electric because we're listening to an EV podcast. As the soft barriers of range and charge time fall away in Canada, a fully kitted out F-Pace costs 85 grand. A fully spec'd out I-Pace costs 115. Split the difference, make the F-Pace and the I-Pace both 105. And for the time being, the margin that you get on the fossil car will make up for the losses on the EV. Hello to Peter Bryn. I love EVs, but to me, they're a means to an end. The goal is to eliminate emissions, and therefore, absolutely, the most important policy is a price on carbon. For listeners who feel the same, please get involved with the Citizens Climate Lobby, says Peter. Well, Pete from California is all about the carrots. We don't have EVs with comparable range in winter climates, so sticks are a rotten nudge, he says. More importantly, I want better carrots. Forget a per EV basis. How about $1 billion incentive towards solid-state battery development that gets 500 to 800 watt-hours per kilo and can be cut clean in half without thermal runaway? Another $1 billion if it's royalty-free. What we need is research and solutions that makes EVs accessible for every type of vehicle, and tackling things at the battery manufacturing end is what will get us there. Hello to Sasha. Sasha Fleury. In short, sticks. Incentives are seen by many as a giveaway to the wealthy. Whilst carrots are more positive, most of the people that I've seen insisting they need to burn fossil fuels state cost as being the driver. Proper battery electric vehicles are marginally more expensive at the time of purchase, at least. Yep, I'd agree with that. They are. And for equal functionality, but the price of ICE vehicles is lower because it's free to pollute in many countries. And that is true as well. There is no cost for the polluters to pay for the clear up. So the people that sell you the car, the people that sell you the fuel, their responsibility, they wash their hands of it the minute it's yours. And you're not paying for it, so who does it fall on? The cost of cleanup is significant. And the cost of cleanup isn't built in to the cost of purchase of the fossil cars and the fossil fuels. So we need sticks in the form of carbon pricing. For example, we could make it such that any new fossil gobbler that sells for the median price of a BEV, a battery electric vehicle or more, would require paying the cost of dealing with the environmental impact of the vehicle. That cash flow funds climate change initiatives like charging infrastructure, while customers' purchase decision becomes easier. Hello to Muniver, who says, I prefer the carrot approach, as incentives can be offered as money off on purchase of the car. Others like reduced stamp duty, registration costs, free parking in parking lots, waiving toll road fees would make any new ICE car purchaser think hard. John Fruworth says, after much deliberation, I come down on the side of carrots. My reasons are the case for the carrot, and we always want to make a case for the carrot on this podcast. It's a good idea. It's the right thing to do. It's because pleasure is a better motivator than pain, and enlightened self-interest is a fabulous motivator. The case against the stick, inflicting pain builds resentment. People are very creative to avoid pain, and inflicting pain is debilitating and counterproductive. I do get you, John, but I do speak as someone who needs the stick. For instance, when I was doing my university degree, I did my 12,000, 20,000, whatever it was, word dissertation the night before. Now, I'm the opposite to my wife. My wife, when she works from home, she used to work from home all the time. She could get up and literally just start working instantly. I know that on the days when I work from home, I got to get up at 6 or 7. I need a couple of cups of tea. But if I'm going to be working by 9, I need that time for me to wake up. Otherwise, I need that kind of fear of like, right, it's 9 o'clock now. The world has started. The workday starts now. Crack on. So let's talk about Luke's response. Luke McCarthy. I would say use the carrot for consumers, which will in turn drive manufacturer decision making. I think the consumer uptake of EVs is moving from innovators to early adopters using the diffusion of innovation theory. The early adopters, or even the early majority, already know the upsides of EVs, and I would expect there are only a few things holding them back from buying one. Richard from Australia finishes us off. If it has to be one, I would say the stick, says Richard. If we're serious about tackling climate crisis and pollution that we've done nothing about since we discovered it, we need to introduce harsh measures now to get the mainstream off of fossil fuels and moving towards electrification. I would introduce a £1 tax on every litre of fossil fuel per year. Wow. Including aviation, farming and industry. I would also remove the ability of companies to claim the cost of fossil fuels as a tax deduction, he says. Wow, aviation's a big one. Aviation doesn't pay tax, in many places at least. And a lot of people are now used to cheap flights. Lots of people, certainly here in Europe, jump on a plane, go away for the weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, maybe Monday, long weekend. People fly an awful lot. You start adding taxes, that's not a vote winner. And we all know politicians, because we're in a general election right now in this country. USA election 2020 has started already. It's it's not a vote winner. And I agree with you. The best thing to do is tax fossil fuels. You won't be winning any popularity contests if you're the politician that does that. Tough situation because we need to do something. All right, here we go. Brand new question of the week this week, set by MyEV.com. And this is a really interesting one. If you only had to pick one upside to driving an EV, what would it be? If you had to pick one upside to driving an EV, what would it be? Now, someone asked me this week about my electric car. They went, obviously you care a lot for the environment. And I nodded and smiled and thought to myself, no, not the reason I bought it. Don't get me wrong. I love the fact that my EV, when I charge it on clean, green, renewable electricity, isn't doing damage, but it still goes through tyres. It still has oil in the gearbox of it, even though it's a single gear. It still cost a lot of debt to the planet to build the darn thing. So, don't discount walking, public transport, getting the bus. But so, personal cars are not the answer to save the planet. But they assumed I drive an EV because my number one reason, I was a tree hugger. So, what's the one thing that's the best thing about owning an EV? But you can't choose 5 or 6. What's the one thing? I love being mean to you. Come on. Decide and let me know. Email me hello@evnewsdaily.com. Leave a comment on Facebook and YouTube comments. Thank you to my Patreon supporters, 254 of you. Premium partners are Phil Roberts of Electric Future doing those big commercial solar installs. Phil based in the northwest of the country, but works all over. Hi to Brad Crosby, individual supporter of this podcast, premium partner for a very long time supporter, and Avid Technology, previous guests and regular contributors to this show answering your tech questions. Hello to my partners, David Allen, OEM Audio of New Zealand and evpower.co.nz. If you're in New Zealand, evpower.co.nz should be your first stop. Hello to Paul O'Connor. Hi to tryev.com, who are doing really well with their crowdfunding. Hi to Gareth Hamer and eMobility Norway, my latest partner at eMobilityNorway.com. Thank you to all of you. Very, very special relationship with you guys and all of my exec producers. I give you a mention on a Sunday. I know it makes the end of the podcast 2 minutes longer. I like doing this. Thank you to Alan Robson, Alan Shedd, Alex Banahini, Alexander Frank, Anders Hove, Ashley Hill, Bjard Fuchstack, Barry Paniston, Brent Kingsford, Brian Thompson, Brian Weatherall, Bruce Bohannon, Cesar Trujillo, Charles Hall, Chris Hopkins, Colin Hennessy, Craig Coles, Craig Cooper, Craig Rogers, Damien Davies, Dan Fairs, Darren Bird, Darren Sant, Yorkshire EVs, Dave Jewson, David Barkman, David Finch, David Partington, David Prescott, Derek Riley at theeffect.net, Don McAllister, whose website, if you have an Apple or a Mac product, screencastsonline.com. Dirk Rutsat, Enrico Stefan Schillo, Frederick Rovick, Free Jewel, aka James, Gene Rubin, Jeff Lowe, George Cligo, Ian Griffiths, Ian Sear, Jack Oakley, James Storr, Jeff Irbies, Jerry Allison, Jim Morris, John Bailey, John Lacey from Click Like Video NZ, John, who is Beardy McBeardface from Kent EVs, John Lodell, Juan Gonzalez, Ken Morris, Kevin Mayerson, Kyle Mayen, Lars Dallager, Lawrence D. Allen, Lejek Grigil, Lee Brown, Luke Cully, Marcel Lohman, Marcel Ward, Marlon Shell, Martin Croft, Matt Piccioni, Matthew Ellis, Matt Sharmia, Oppelstrop, Michael Pastroni, Michael Cuffin, Mike Rogers and Mike Winter, Nathan Gore Brown, Neil Lee Roberts and Sussex EVs, Northern Explorers, Ohan Aston, Paul Ridings, Paul Shelley, Paul Stevenson, Perry Simpkins, Pete Glass, Pete Gordon, Peter and D. Roberts, who are Oxen EVs, Phil Mouchet, Pontus Klimbad, Rajiv Narayan, Ralph Jensen, Rene Schneider, Rob Cooling from appledriving.co.uk, Rob Hermans, Robert Grace, Robert Grace, Robin Tanner, Rupert Mitchell, Sabby the Cat, yes, Sarah McCann, Sari Kangasoja, Sakey Payne, Steve John, Stuart Hammer, The Limousine Lion in Sydney, Plug Seekers, EV YouTube channel, Tim Gutteridge, William Langhorne and Zach Hursts. There are 635 previous shows online. Please leave a review if you haven't done yet on Apple Podcasts. If you do use Apple Podcasts, it takes 2 minutes. Do a star rating, say a few words, say what you want. That bloke who does a podcast, he's not too bad. Anything you want, but it really helps other people see your review, and then they might try the podcast if you say nice words. I'd really appreciate it. I know you're busy, though. If you want to say hi on the socials, search EV News Daily. Have a wonderful day. Catch you soon. Remember, there's no such thing as a self-charging hybrid.